The Gospel according to St. Matthew, chapter 1. The book of the generation of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham begat Isaac, and Isaac begat Jacob, and Jacob begat Judas and his brethren. And Judas begat Pharez and Zerah of Thamar, and Pharez begat Esrom, and Esrom begat Aram, and Aram begat Aminadab, and Aminadab begat Nason, and Nason begat Salmon, and Salmon begat Booz of Rehab, and Booz begat Obed of Ruth, and Obed begat Jesse, and Jesse begat David the king, and David the king begat Solomon of her that had been the wife of Urias. And Solomon begat Rehoboam, and Rehoboam begat Abia, and Abia begat Asa, and Asa begat Josaphat, and Josaphat begat Joram, and Joram begat Ozias, and Ozias begat Joatham, and Joatham begat Achaz, and Achaz begat Ezekias, and Ezekias begat Manassas, and Manassas begat Ammon, and Ammon begat Josias. And Josias begat Jeconias and his brethren about the time they were carried away to Babylon. And after they were brought to Babylon, Jeconias begat Salathiel, and Salathiel begat Zorobabel, and Zorobabel begat Abiud, and Abiud begat Eliakim, and Eliakim begat Azor, and Azor begat Zadok, and Zadok begat Achim, and Achim begat Eliud, and Eliud begat Eleazar, and Eleazar begat Mathan, and Mathan begat Jacob, and Jacob begat Joseph, the husband of Mary, whom was born Jesus, who is called Christ. So all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations, and from David until the carrying away unto Babylon are 14 generations, and from the carrying away into Babylon unto Christ are 14 generations. Now the birth of Jesus Christ was on this wise, when, as his mother Mary was espoused to Jacob, before they came together, she was found with child of the Holy Ghost. Then Joseph her husband, being a just man, and not willing to make her a public example, was minded to put her away privily. But while he thought on these things, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a dream, saying, Joseph, thou son of David, fear not to take unto thee Mary thy wife, for that which is conceived in her is of the Holy Ghost. And she shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Jesus, for she shall save his people from their sins. Now all this was done that it might be fulfilled which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, Behold, a virgin shall be with child, and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which being interpreted is, God with us. Then Joseph, being raised from sleep, did as the angel of the Lord had bidden him, and took unto him his wife, and knew her not until she had brought forth her firstborn son, and he called his name Jesus. The tendency of most people is to rush through this because it seems like it's uninteresting, it's just a genealogy, just a bunch of names. But this is a critical chapter for you to understand several things. Who Jesus was, why the Jews were terrified of Jesus as an individual, and as he might affect the politics of the country, and why they were quite ready to kill him if they had the opportunity, and actually demanded to kill him. And they used the excuse of his religious activity. The genealogies are important because this genealogy and the one in Luke tie together and explain one simple thing. Jesus had the legal right, as did Joseph, to be the legal king of Israel. The genealogy provided here in Matthew is the descent through those individuals who could have been or should have been the kings of Israel, starting with King David. And they show Joseph's ancestry so that Jesus had a claim on being the rightful king of Israel. All of it. When they got down to Mary's father and Joseph's father, they were brothers. That made, of course, Mary and Joseph were cousins, and in the Mideast, you marry your cousins. You usually have lots of cousins to choose from. They married cousins. that meant essentially that there were going to be many similarities between Mary's genealogy and Joseph's genealogy. It also meant that there would be some significant differences. In Luke's genealogy, we have the personal genealogy as opposed to the full legal kingship genealogy, and there are some differences between the two. A lot of people get really hung up because of the differences. Don't. They have all been reconciled by Jewish genealogists. They are the same genealogy. What they are there to show is that Jesus is of Davidic ancestry. He's of royal birth. He's entitled to be the king, as was Joseph. And that explains some of the reasons why the Jews were terrified of him. Secondly, we have the part, and we have just a small part here of Matthew telling about Mary being found to be, they're espoused. You need to know what espoused meant. Back then, it was not just, oh, well, we'll get married and we'll set a date. Whole different culture, whole different thing. And what happens when she is found with child? An espousal in Hebrew times meant it was essentially a covenant that you were bound together, you were going to be married, and you were considered married in every aspect except you did not live together. What happened during the espousal period was the young man went and built a house for his bride to come in. No house, no bride. Guys had incentive to build houses, and they had to have that houses approved by their father and the bride's father, but especially by their father, if I remember correctly. And when the father approved of the house, then he could go get his bride and bring her to the house. In between that time of the espousal and when they were actually married, they couldn't even talk to one another directly. They had to send messengers back and forth. I am sure in my case, if that had been it, there'd have been some guy who would have had his legs worn off. But they lived in a small town. Everybody would have known if these two were cheating on something. And then all of a sudden, she is found with child, and you live in a small town, and you're espoused with somebody else, and you are with child. Now the point is, Joseph was worried about this, and he thought to put her away privately, privily. He had the right under Jewish law, and in fact he almost had the obligation to accuse her, because they hadn't been together, to accuse her of adultery. She would have had absolutely no defense. You know, the baby's growing inside of her. There would have been no defense. She was with somebody. It would have been considered incontrovertible in law. And if she was found guilty, which she would have been, she could have been stoned to death. This was no light thing. This was deadly serious. He decided that no, he wouldn't. He was thinking about this. We should put her away privately and just sort of let it end. And they did have that option, but it was very rarely used. Men were too prideful. You know, your bride-to-be is found having been with some other guy, you kill her. And that's the way it usually was. But that's not the kind of man Joseph was. So, while he's having this thought, he has a vision, and he has the instruction that this child is not anything that he needs to be worried about. This child has come from God, and that he is to accept Mary and to accept this child, which he does. And then he goes and they completes the house, completes the marriage arrangement, and then they get together. But he doesn't know her. In other words, they have no sexual relationship until after the baby is born. It's the kind of man that Joseph is. There's an incredible amount of stuff in these things.